Welcome to week 2 of Quantum Wizardry. Today we're going to be dropping into the concept of bioenergetics, an introduction to the four body system and how our energy can have an effect and influence upon our very biology. As we look through this, I want to start off first and foremost by moving into a quote, providing us with some context. There is more wisdom in your body than your deepest philosophy. For spending so much time with our bodies, it's been my experience that we actually have a very superficial relationship with this physical vessel that we call our bodies. And part of my intention today is really to walk us through getting to know ourselves even better. To do so in a way that allows us not merely to connect with our physical body, the outlet and vehicle of expression for our thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and energy as well. To this end, we're going to start off with a simple exercise called the body scan. Now, the body scan is basically going to get us into a relaxative state. We are going to slowly and steadily observe our body, take inventory upon any areas of tension, tightness, and stress. So I invite you first and foremost to assume a relaxed position and to close your eyes. With your eyes now closed, merely focus upon breath, the slow, steady, simple sensation that is breath. Take a moment merely to connect with the rising and falling of your chest, the filling and the emptying of our lungs. Now allow your attention to span out, becoming more aware of your body, specifically allowing your attention and your awareness to rest at your feet. Become aware of the ground beneath your feet, the feeling and the sensation of your foot and your feet. Just becoming aware of any areas of tension and tightness, duress, and stress. Maintaining this level of observation, of merely becoming aware and more aware of yourself. Allow your consciousness now to travel from your feet and your ankles slowly and steadily up now the length of your lower legs, your calves and your shins, up into your knees. Become more aware now of the length of your right thigh, the muscle, the sinew, the very bone itself as it inserts into your hip. Do so now the same for the left-hand side. Become aware now more of your hips, your tailbone, the length of your spine through your lower back, your organs, and your abdomen. Become aware now of your fingertips and your hands, the length and totality of your right arm to the bones, the muscle, and the sinew, up into the shoulders. Same thing for the left, all the way up from hand, all the way and into shoulder. Become now aware of your chest and your back, your lungs, still maintaining that slow, steady breath, the very beating of your heart. Further now through the shoulders, up into the neck, the face, all the way to the tippy top of your head. Breathe out now, allowing all air to expire from your lungs as you slowly, steadily breathe in fully, holding this breath. Exhale heavy with a sigh. And when you feel ready, please feel free to again open your eyes. Now take a moment merely to check in, to feel where your stress in your body is. Did you feel it more in your lower body, your upper body, your neck? Are you experiencing it now within your left knee, your right shoulder, maybe your forearm and hand? Wherever it is, just merely take a note. Again, inventory your experience. As we now dive into the concept of bioenergetic anatomy. Because what our body is capable of doing and communicating is what's happening right now in this moment. Our capacity to identify, to decode, and to connect with what that is the only thing that really comes into question. For example, left-hand side of the body is our feminine aspect. The right-hand side is the masculine. The concept, for example, with the yin and the yang is something that we not just take intellectually, that philosophy of the mind. It is held within the very wisdom of our body. That masculine aspect, our relationship to light, what is seen, what is known, is projective, is that yang energy, which is direct and powerful, tied to the elements of fire and wind, and in our awareness of the energetic and mental aspect of self. Now, this ties into the etheric or quantum realm, if you will, as well as the psychic, the area of ideas, concepts, and really, I guess, questions. Now, these qualities present themselves in terms of the masculine as order, structure, organization. It is analytical, it's direct, focused, and more. It's all about framework. And this structured framework provides a container for other things to be expressed through. Now, the left-hand side, the feminine aspect, is that darkness, the unknown, is receptive, has the energy of yin, which is allowing and open. Tied to the elements of earth and water, our physical and emotional body, also to the realms of matter and the astral realm, things like astral projection and things of that nature. Those qualities, again, allowing open, flow with, creative, subtle, and imaginative. Now, that comes into play because when we actually look at the functionality of the body, we actually look at each joint junction and how they operate and what they do. The foot and the ankle maintaining an upright position initiates movement. The knee and the lower leg comes to stabilize posture, transference of force. Our hips and our legs distributing force and generating movement. Our upper torso protecting our organs and stabilizing the spine and spinal functionality. Our arms and shoulders coming to act upon the world, the pushing and the pulling, bringing forth and exerting away from. Our head and our neck comes to a place of influencing and affecting our perception. That going beyond merely just our visual field, also being able to orient so we can hear better, to smell better, to taste. Now that comes into play then when we look at its energetic equivalent. We're dealing with things like a headache, for example. It could be overthinking something. It could be related to how we see and to perceive. Tightness within the shoulders, for example, that could be indicative of things that we're carrying, burdens that we have. As well as how are we engaging the world around us. The upper torso comes to a place of emotional well-being, and what are we feeling? Moreover, how are we feeling about what it is we are feeling? Our hips and our upper legs, how well we are moving forward or generating movement in our lives. Is one foot stuck in the past while the other is attempting to move past the present? Our knees and our lower legs, how adaptable we are, how able are we to pivot, to move, and to exercise some finesse in the things that we're doing. Our foot and our ankle, for example. What is it that we stand upon? Beliefs, values, things that we hold near and dear to ourselves can have an absolute effect upon our cells. Our body, again, is more receptive. It is an outlet of expression and can be heavily influenced by other factors. And so often in this picture, for example, we'll see the zeros and one. And so there's almost a computer code to it, a coding to it, which is very binary. Something is not. Something is true, something is false. In this case, for all intended purposes, something is strong, this will be our ones, and something is weak, which would be the zeros. Now, for example, you wake up in the morning and you are just super tired. I'll use an example. This morning, indeed, I woke up having just slept with the boys on the ground. I woke up, and even though I was sleeping for 6-7 hours, I woke up and I was just like, oh man, I am so tired because I just didn't sleep well. They're 2.5 and 5.5. Sleeping on the cushions on the ground ain't no thing for them. For me, it really is. And so woke up and I was more zeros than I was one. And so I took a little test to see where I was and recognized that I was in a more depleted state. So from now on, we'll look at zeros as depletion. So I did a meditation, I did some breath work, and I switched from that state of being primarily in zero and into one, and ones in this case is renewed. Now, the thing about that is that yes, me sleeping in that state was a part of it. And there are other pieces that are party to our process. Now, here what we see is what's known as a morphogenetic field. Now, this is a field of information, which is something that carries into our body. Now, going back one step, we can see all this white space around this figure and even within the figure itself. Now, the thing about this is this is when we talk about pure energy, interconnectivity, the relationship of me to you and to you to all things. This unseen yet ever-present energetic connection is something that, when we talk about the morphogenetic field, begins to take form. So now when the field has form, this is something that carries information and indeed can lead to our flow. The morphogenetic field carries all of this information, all of this data about the individualized aspect of self. So it carries information. It's like a radio signal, if you will, that is held within our space. Now, the thing about it is that often when this signal, even though this signal is beaming consistently all of the time, our ability to pick up on it is ultimately determined by our chakra system. Now, this is also tied to our emotions, our feelings, and can experience blockages. The blockages, very much like a mountain stream, for example, can influence how much of our field actually is in flow. So put differently, we have a consistent signal beaming, right? So we got a consistent signal that is beaming, and I kind of think of it as cell phone reception. Now, that tower is beaming a signal. I have my cell phone in my pocket. Now, my closeness, quote unquote closeness, which is about proximity to this signal, can be an influence of how many bars I actually have to my cell phone. Additionally, there can be other things, mountains, buildings, other things that can affect and influence my ability to receive the signal. And so very much in alignment with that, our chakras, when blocked, inhibits the full reception of these signals and can have a very, very specific influence upon our body to be more renewing, to be more depleting. Now, as we move through this, then we start to look at what does that mean in terms of our emotional, our physical, our psychic, and in the top left-hand corner, our energetic selves. Well, one thing I like to look at and turn to is the Scale of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. And so this really looks at the level, layer, and scope of emotions and then also awareness. Now, the thing about it is our state of mind matters. And what that means is where our mind is will be more dense in terms of those lower feelings of shame and guilt. That's when we feel heavy, and can also be more light, joyous, and loving, being in a place of just inner peace. That is also comes into a place of magnitude. So if the state of my mind matters, then that matter is also a matter of gratitude. Meaning that when we look at these numbers here in the scale, love and fear being on the left-hand side of the image, going a little bit closer, enlightenment, peace, joy, love, reason, acceptance, so on and so forth. The numbers directly to the right, 250, 400, 500, 540, are not just merely a matter of a set fixed point system. Rather, if we look at the energy of desire or anger, for example, let's look at anger at 150, that is 150 to the 10th power. So it's our transition from anger into pride is not merely a matter of 25 points, as it is 25 to the 10th power. So it's not just merely flipping a switch, as it is also being able to work through whatever it is that is heavier, that is denser, and can be distributed throughout ourselves. Now, what that means is sometimes we can accelerate or have a more elevated state of consciousness, say, for example, in social interactions and relationships, perhaps in finance, perhaps in spirituality, and have an area of attention and opportunity. So it could be lower, perhaps, in emotional well-being or intellectual learning. And so that sum total, the average, is something that we come out to. And as we focus upon those areas of growth, for myself, an area definitely is emotional well-being and emotional intelligence, is being able to then see collectively rising and raising that number overall. Now, this really comes not just into a single lifetime, and that's the key part of it, is we tend to look at things from an isolated perspective. These numbers didn't just happen. This is something that we've gone through different incarnation cycles to get to. And the scale is evolving, as we all are. So whereas this, at the time it was created, went up for a human being, for example, at that place of enlightenment, calibrating at 750, things are changing. We're seeing consciousness now expressed in a very different way. And we're seeing new levels of awareness coming into the world. Now, the trick about this is that when we focus within, inside of ourselves, be very attentive and intentional about influencing myself, my inner world, it has a natural effect on others. We all have those friends or know someone when they walk into the room, they light the whole place up. We identify it as charisma or just that energy that they carry, and yet they have an influence on everyone in that room. They walk in happy and joyous, the whole place starts to light up. They walk in sad and depressed, man, everyone is bummed. And so as we look at this in terms of a scale of consciousness, one thing to be attentive to is that each and every one of us are dealing with this internally. And the most available area that we can look at in terms of identifying whereabouts we are is related to our brain waves. Our brain as a receiver then goes through these different fluctuations. For a human being, we could be down at the lower aspect, lower just meaning a matter of hertz at 0.5 to 4 hertz in delta. This is like deep sleep. Goes into a place of really almost like a loss of connection to our body. However, also can be utilized for deep restorative healing work within our physical self. Theta, which is a place of creativity and insight, but then also goes into light sleep and deep meditation. Alpha, which is our awakened state, We are connected to the world around us, and we have a solid connection to the world within. Beta is by and large where most people spend their time, 13 to 32 hertz, larger range than all of the three preceding brainwave frequencies together, comes to what we see as anywhere from thinking and alert to being in a place of excitement, of anxiety, overthinking. And when we switch beyond that, this is where we get into gamma. Now, gamma, as you can see, is a larger range than all four of these together. And this is one we'll focus a little bit more on in week 5. However, just know that this is a part of it. By and large, though, our area of attention and focus is going to be delta, theta, alpha, and beta. And so since we're talking about brain waves, I'm going to talk about waves in the ocean. Delta is very much like that soft, quiet, peaceful ocean. This is maybe like the slow lapping. It almost seems as if the ocean is absolutely still. When stirred, we start to see a little bit of those little bumps, and that's theta. Alpha being more like swells starting to roll in. Beta being like waves, wind-blown, super choppy, white caps all over the place. And so when we immerse ourselves in this, and this can vary between our left and right hemisphere, our ultimate place of power is being in that state of alpha, largely, and being able to hold that within both the left and the right hemisphere. So we are in what's known as a coherent state. Yeah, what is coherence? Well, to that end, I want to go into this video, and this video is going to show us something called cymatics. And so right here we have, one moment. Right here we have a metal plate. And this metal plate basically it's a clear metal plate. As you can see, it's propped up at the bottom. What's going to be happening is there will be some salt poured on, microparticles that will then be affected and influenced by levels and ranges of hertz. Now that's going to create a rate of oscillation, up and down movement. Now what happens, and what really is pretty amazing and tremendous, is that irrespective of what we're looking at, whether it's water, salt, sand, there's an influence here where what is diffused and scattered can then be concentrated and influenced. Indeed, what we see is that when there is a proper frequency, in this case hertz, administered, all of a sudden things come together. And how it comes together, going back a step, is related to that scale of consciousness. What is the dominant energy and energetic pattern that we hold? How, in fact, does that then actually have an effect upon our very physiology? Well, if our body is primarily water, then what we see, indeed, is that we can affect and influence this. And we see this with Dr. Emoto's work in terms of the crystalline form of water and ice and how different emotions can affect and influence as well. And so what we see here is a beautiful array based upon the level and range of hertz that is being administered to a coherent, geometric pattern. And so part of the opportunity then, if we're looking at just pure raw energy, things starting to take form, that mental body, or in this case, the morphogenetic field, that field of information, that field of self, flows, right, steadily through. And in this case, these outlets being our chakra systems, then being more open, being plugged, being obstructed. As they open more readily and steadily, then all of a sudden things flow. And as things really do flow, what we're going to see then is that our body is going to be in a more renewed state of being rather than depleted. And as we are more renewed in our lives, then coming back very much in that line of patterns and cycles, we have the capacity to influence the world around us just by being. And so as we bring this part in and to a close, I really want to just be very clear that we are the sum total of the interaction and indeed the intersection of this four body system. And the more that we're able to be responsible for ourselves, in this case, managing our mana, then the more able we are to actually influence positive change. So I just want to say mahalo nui loa to all of you. I hope that this is of value to you in one way, shape, or form. And if you have any questions, then by all means reach out. Love and aloha to you all. Take care of each other, and ahui ho.